T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Kush'S Korner, episode 27 here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. Tonight is the return of one of the original guests here on Kush'S Korner, Mr. Patrick Holmes, to talk about some of his success in this past breeding season. He had a number of different species that he bred. We will be kind of getting into all of that tonight. But before that, as always, USARK. So for those of you who are unaware, USARK is the organization that is fighting for our rights to keep our reptiles, to run our reptile businesses, and to pursue this way of life. Check out usark.org for all of the relevant information you need to know about the organization. And if you are not already, please look into becoming a member. As a community, we have strength in numbers, and the more people that we have behind the cause, the better. And we are brought to you by Texas Chondros, Mark Hager, one of my personal favorites in this reptile industry, and particularly in the green tree python world. He is a breeder of high-end designer green tree pythons right here in the great state of Texas. Not only is he a great breeder, but he runs the Texas Chondros Instagram page that is a curation of green tree pythons from not only Mark's collection, but from keepers all over the great state of Texas. So for more about Mark, his green trees, and green tree pythons in Texas in general, check out Texas Chondros. We're also brought to you by Mark Bailey of Mark Bailey Reptiles, an OG in the reptile industry. He has been doing this at the highest level since well before I was born, and somebody who I really look up to and admire. But he is currently leading the way in the designer ball python industry. He has been working with these genes and everything that everyone loves these days long before you even knew what they were. So check out Mark Bailey Reptiles for his availability of the highest end ball pythons in the game. And we are also brought to you by Blake's Exotic Feeders. If you are here in the United States and are looking for quail to feed to your reptiles, check out Blake's Exotic Feeders. They hand raise everything in their facility here in the United States, so you know you're getting a good quality feeder from a US-based source. Once again, check out Blake's Exotic Feeders for your feeder quail needs. And here we are on episode 27. Patrick is running a little bit behind. He is having one of his trademark Patrick dinners at the moment of very carnivorous types of foods. So I'll kind of kill a little bit of time until Patrick is here. But big weekend. We just got back from the Dallas NARBC show. It was nice to be out there, see a bunch of old friends, and get away for a little bit. Ended up with a couple pickups at the show, nothing too crazy. I'll probably post about them soon, but got my hands on one of it is in fact, from a population standpoint, the rarest snake native to the United States, the Kentucky pine snake, native to only a few small counties in Kentucky. Got those snakes from the great and powerful Craig Trumbauer. An OG of the industry, somebody who, if you are not aware of Craig Trumbauer, you should definitely become aware of him. In the colubrid world and the field herping world and in many different aspects of this industry, Craig is an absolute legend. That was definitely a snake that I was going to that show kind of hoping would be there. He had some on the table at Daytona. Unfortunately, I missed Daytona, so I wasn't able to grab one there. But fortunately enough, they didn't all sell at Daytona, so there were some at the show. I was able to grab one for myself, and very excited about that. Otherwise, definitely some cool stuff at the show. I feel like not quite the variety you'd see at like a Tinley Park or a Reptile Super Show, but not every show can be either of those. Cool venue too. I guess that's the first time they've been in that room specifically at that venue. I didn't go to the first Dallas show. And from what I've heard, the new and improved room is just that. It was better than the other room, higher ceilings, brighter, all of that. It's always nice to be at a reptile show in a warm climate as well. Some of those Tinley parks where you're pulling up and it's 40 degrees. It could definitely be tough, especially if you're vending and you're loading and unloading. So to be in a nice Texas summer for a reptile show is pretty cool. But got to hang out with a lot of my favorite people. Shout out particularly, obviously, MJ was there. We hung out a lot. Bill Stiegel, Marshall Mendez. I mean, the list goes on and on. A lot of the chondro community showed up strong, and it was cool to see everybody. But I guess we're still killing time until Patrick can show up. But I guess now that I'm back from the show, kind of my mind is shifted to focus on this upcoming breeding season. I got a lot of stuff, hopefully, that I can, make work one way or another. Not only scrub pythons. Had a great year of scrub pythons this year. For anyone who hasn't listened, I did an overview show of my breeding season 2 weeks ago or so. And, so for details of that, you can go check out that episode, just a solo episode, me alone. But with the success that I had this year, I hope to be able to exceed that with the scrub pythons this coming year. Maybe even throw some new species in the mix, be that Tannenbars, Halmaheras, Moluccans. I got a shot at all three. Really the first legitimate shot I've had at either Tannenbars or Halmaheras as well. So those are snakes that I really would like to add to the list. Not only the list, but really just, to be able to actually add to the gene pool of those species in captivity, given that there are not many. I mean, at the moment, of those other three species of scrub python, there are none available captive bred really in the world. But with that said, our guest has arrived. Enough of my rambling. Let's hear Patrick ramble. What's going on?
I've been known to ramble before. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I had a feeling. I've heard whispers that you will ramble.
Yeah. I'm trying to get my volume up. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. If anybody's been paying attention to my Instagram story today, you'll know I had some visitors at the house, and today is my day off. But anybody who pays any attention to me knows that I don't really have days off. So, got up at 5 and did snake stuff all morning, and then I had to run to FedEx and pick up 3 packages, and then make it back to the house to meet up with Alex and Sal, and just awesome that Sal got to stick around. Today was his last day in town.
Oh, really?
He was wanting, and he was wanting to come over like a lot of people were. And I just last week on my day off, I went to Reptilandia, as you know, and and then all weekend, well, you saw firsthand what my weekend was like. So I basically ran around the whole weekend with a whole bunch of people trying to catch up to me while I was just trying to I wanted to just do my thing at the show, but I never really got a chance to. I bet I didn't see, no way I saw half of the stuff at the show. Yeah, but that's okay. I still got to talk to a lot of people, sold a whole bunch of snakes, and good stuff. But yeah, so after they left, I had to unbox all the new stuff because I couldn't do order of operations. So all the new stuff that came in had to be unboxed after I'm in the baby room and dealing with all my other stuff. And then snuck in a workout and do some shit on the grill. Now I'm here.
Sounds like a day off.
Yeah. Well, that meal I just had felt like a day off, so that'll do.
Hey, fair enough. Was that your first time out of Reptilandia?
Oh, no, that's my, I don't know, fourth time at least.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that was nothing new to you then.
No, the first time I went out, they were just barely, it was before the fire,
Mm,
barely getting all those buildings going. One of them wasn't even close to
yeah.
having anything really even in it. And it has been incredible to go down there over the last however long it's been and see some of that progress. And
Yeah.
it's also been super cool to like. I wish we had more time to do this, but I know you did it too. It's awesome to sit down there and just geek out with Ari and Quetzal about the stuff they're trying and the successes and failures and the things the changes and tweaks they're having to make based on the stuff they're seeing. And it's just, I can't even wrap my head around all of that they have going down there. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, to be able to kind of mentally compartmentalize something that's that big, and not only a collection size, but so many large enclosures that are mixed species. And I mean, and with a small team as well. I mean, it's really just the three of them. So that's, I couldn't imagine. That's got to be just extremely challenging.
Yeah. Eventually, once they get out of the red, they'll be able to get a crew in there, and have but it's also, that's not a easy task either, to find the right people to do that type of stuff. And until you have stuff dialed in where you even have like a real system in place for something on that scale, what do you even do with employees? You know what I'm saying? Like how do you delegate responsibility in a place like that when you're still trying to figure it all out?
Yeah, I mean, you can maybe have them sweep the floors and stuff and take the trash out. That's really
exactly.
That's really about it at that early stage.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it is over here. Obviously, I'm not physically that big over here, but I have a lot of animals, and a lot of them are not just straightforward stuff.
Right.
And so when Zach comes over to help me out, it's do the rats, clean the dirty tub stacks, stuff like that, scrub out empty cages. Other than doing some of the colubrid stuff for me, I still do all of my animal care and feeding and all that stuff because I enjoy it and I want to have eyes and hands on all of my stuff as frequently as possible.
Yeah. Quickly, a little side note. I want to ask, when you have an empty enclosure and you're preparing it for a new snake, what's your disinfecting protocol for an enclosure that it's in place? You're not taking it outside. You're not, doing any of that. What do you do for that enclosure?
Well, so it depends on what was in it, what's going to go in it, how long it's going to be before something goes in it. Mm-hmm. A lot of stuff, pathogens die quickly, seconds, minutes, hours, days. And so the vast majority of anything that you would worry about, with the exception of some bacteria and fungus, is just going to die just from letting the cage sit there. If the enclosure, so the cleaners that I have are rubbing alcohol, bleach, vinegar, chlorhexidine, and dish soap.
Okay.
I don't use chlorhexidine much because I don't like the color and the smell. And if you soak certain surfaces in it too long, it kind of leaves weird residues and stuff like that. Heavily diluted, it's really good for like a quick wipe out of tubs and stuff like that.
What is strong?
I just don't. I wish it was clear and odorless instead of, or whatever the natural odor is, because they add shit to it. They add color and fragrance to it, and I don't like that. Otherwise, I would use chlorhexidine more often. So alcohol is for spot cleaning, sometimes wiping out a level of a rack when I'm not actually cleaning the rack. Okay. Because it dissipates so quickly. And alcohol is also for quick cleaning of utensils, my phone, door handles, sink knobs, stuff like that. Common contact points. And then, but for enclosures, I used alcohol to spot clean sometimes. I like vinegar, but it takes the smell quite some time to dissipate. Sure. So I only use vinegar if it is heavily soiled as an initial, because acetic acid is the main constituent in vinegar, and acetic acid is, well, it's used in all kind of chemical processes, but it helps to separate organic from inorganic materials. Okay. So vinegar is a good way to clean, urates and stuff like that. So that'll be kind of the initial. If nothing's going in there pretty quick, I'll just blast it. I have big Zep spray bottles full of all these different cleaners. I'll blast it out with vinegar. But tends to be, especially if there was some kind of issue with an animal that was in the enclosure, the first thing I'm going to do is douse it in alcohol. Like, that's just, as soon as I pull the animal out, I just spray every surface down in alcohol. Yeah. That kind of a quick kill of a ton of stuff. Okay. I don't use bleach much for enclosures, but I do employ bleach very frequently for utensils, water bowls, my dump buckets. I have buckets for dirty water in all of the rooms, certain types of perches, lots of stuff gets a good bleach soak. 10 minutes seems to be at a 10% solution seems to be sufficient, but sometimes I do longer, and I almost always mix it stronger than 10%. Sure. Yeah. And like I say, I don't employ the chlorhexidine much, but I do keep it around for wound irrigation or mouth swabbing. If you get a wound, you get an abscess, you get stomatitis. I kind of switch back and forth between betadine and chlorhexidine for those purposes, medical stuff. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have different approaches to that for kind of different purposes. It's always interesting to hear. I'm always personally really paranoid about it, and like using multiple cleaners to hit like multiple different types of pathogens or bacteria or whatnot. But, well, my number one cleaner is dish soap. I use dish soap on almost everything, but it's like an initial or a final, or I run a lot of stuff through the dishwasher. I have because I have the whole other house, so a lot of and even my dishwasher, I'll throw feeding utensils in, like this feeding utensils from the baby room. Me too. Yeah, baby room's on my side, so I'm dropping that stuff in. I'm not gonna walk it over there to the other one. I just throw it in with my dishes. Yeah. So. But yeah, I love dish soap, but it's just kind of like dish soap is not for disinfecting. It's not for sterilizing. It's just for cleaning surfaces. Sure. And it's extremely effective. Yeah. So I can't think of, I don't think there's anything else that I really run, but again, it's circumstantial. One of the cool things I discovered, and this saves me a shitload of money. I can't believe I didn't know this sooner, that 70% rubbing alcohol, which is a small fraction of the cost of higher percentages, 90. I used to buy medical grade 99.9% rubbing alcohol. I paid $30 a gallon for it. And I discovered that 70% is actually more effective because the higher percentages evaporate too quickly. Yeah. And but I probably told you this before. I was at the lab one time with Chad, and we were talking about different disinfectants because he runs a lab. Sure. And the dude's got like I remember a few years ago I was over there. He had every known COVID strain chilling in the freezer. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they have some serious stuff to do over there for disinfecting, sterilizing. He takes a pair of forceps, drops them into a bottle of 99.9% rubbing alcohol, pulls them out, and then lights them with a lighter, and the alcohol is. And he said, "I promise you, there's nothing alive on that surface anymore."
Yeah. I don't know if that's the best protocol for reptile enclosures in a room.
No,
but that makes sense.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah. That's, yeah. So for anyone listening, don't light your cages on fire.
Yeah.
Not a good move.
Yeah, fire is the ultimate cleanser, but that's why I run a whole lot of ambient.
Yeah. Ain't that the fucking truth? Do you ever like let like tubs and shit like sit outside and like sun bleach for a period of time?
Not for too long because it fucks up the plastic. They get too much sun. And I do take shit outside. I've got stuff outside right now. Yeah. For example, I picked up a bunch of brand new Vision tubs for my racks, colubrid racks, from Reptarium last night, along with a used Exoterra for that's going to go on my dresser in my bedroom for my Lepidus, because I'm moving the rock rattlesnakes and the specks and leps are moving to my bedroom because the humidity is too high everywhere else. And first thing I did with the Exo, the tubs are brand new. The Exo looks brand new, but it's used. First thing I did when I got home is I set it on my porch and I drenched it in rubbing alcohol, and that's a mite protocol. You know, anytime that I'm picking up something at it's not about Reptarium, it's about being at a shop or at a show or whatever. When I get cork bark at a show, it fucking sits outside. Yeah. You know? And then the tubs, they're brand new, but I'm still gonna spray them down with alcohol before I rinse them off with a light dish soap and employ them, you know, as tubs in the rack.
Sure.
It's just easy protocol. So for right now, they're just chilling on the front porch.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's something that's overlooked a lot. I always wash my new tubs when I get them from anywhere, from the store, from a show, for anything. I just, you know, like that kind of film that a new plastic tub has on it.
Yep.
It's
almost oily.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know exactly
what it is. I don't like it. I wash my deli cups before I use them. I go through hundreds and hundreds of deli cups. I wash deli cups before I use them. It takes me seconds. I just run the water, pull out a stack. I have foaming dish soap bottles all over at every sink in my house, and I just barely tap it and give it a swirl and a rinse and stack them up. Just takes a couple seconds per deli cup, and I do everything in batches. I mean, you see what this freaking room looks like in here. Everything is in batches. There's clean tubs on top of the racks, and then the puppy pads, paper towels, cardboard egg crate, newspaper. All this stuff is just stacked up all the time, and I do all that in batches. And I'm fortunate enough now to have Zach over here to help me stay on top of the dirty stacks of tubs.
Yeah, that's always helpful. That's like the one thing that's just the absolute easiest to just let slide and just be like, I'll clean that tomorrow. And then tomorrow turns into next month, and then it turns into whenever you need it next.
Yeah. When you're going through racks and there's tubs that are like, ugh.
Yep. Hell yeah. Well, to kind of get to the main topic of the night, you had quite the eclectic breeding season.
I did.
What I mean, how many species did you produce this year?
Man, I should have studied for this. We did, I'm sure Steven prepared for this in some way, shape, or form, but he and I did zero preparation together. This was just, hey, you want to talk about snakes? Fuck yeah, let's talk about snakes.
Yep.
And so let's see. Believe it or not, I produced green tree pythons this year.
I'm gonna need to see proof I don't believe you.
6 clutches so far of green trees. I hatched 7, but one of them was from a local friend who got a surprise clutch from his wild caught sorongs. And I'm not quite done yet. So, but 6 clutches of green trees so far. So, I hatched out divergence. So, Luzon mangrove snakes, Leo locality, Boiga. I hatched out corns. What's that?
They both aped today, by the way.
Oh, sweet. They were both. The female you got from me, the older older one. She that animal ate first try as a neonate. That's just super solid, biggest, fastest growing one in the clutch. And so I expect the other one, being that it ate first try with live ASF, it's going to be the same way.
Yeah.
I also would suggest, as a side note, that you feed the absolute shit out of the male and get him bigger than the female as soon as possible.
That is my plan. Kind of pace her and don't pace him.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Yeah, it's a high strung colubrid. That thing will not get fat when it's young. It's like a bull snake.
Yeah.
You just feed the shit out of it early. The earlier you feed them heavy, the bigger their overall size will be. Even if you slow them down later, they still will get bigger than if you did not feed them aggressively when they're young. And then the female, you can just maintenance feed her, because she's going to reach maturity regardless and lay similar size clutches regardless. And so maintenance feed her and just put some size on that boy so she doesn't try to eat him. So I hatched out Okatee corn snakes. I hatched out Stillwater hypo bull snakes. And then I had the last ATB litter was not this year. I do have gravid Amazon tree boas right now. I had the Laticinctus litter, the Tropidolamus vipers, slugged out on the purple spot vipers, the ultra black perps, bunch. They had a bunch of slugs too, 13 or something like that, man.
That hurts.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, the male, I never saw anything with them. The male she was showing signs and I paired them. The male did a lot of avoiding her. When I put them together in the spring, thinking I was going to catch another round, they hung out together a lot. But being that she slugged out shortly after that tells me that she actually ovulated in the fall when I first had them, when she first started showing signs. And so male he just wasn't on when she was. So chondros, divergens, Laticinctus, corns, bulls. That may be it for the season. And I have an emerald that's acting gravid and 2 Amazon tree boas that are definitely gravid. And all of that shit is starting over right now. I have a venomous update that I will share with you privately, because most of y'all know I'm extremely superstitious about these things, but it is a very rare species and one of my favorite snakes in the world, especially in my collection. And it's a captive bred pair that I have, and the male went off feed after I kind of had them on a fasting thing over the summer and was keeping them dry and not really feeding them. Bumped up the humidity and the male started cruising, and we've had a little bit of rain pass through, and then the male refused. Female's been hunting. Put them together in the middle of the day today while I had company over, and they locked up quickly and were still locked up last time I looked down there. So it's the longest I've ever seen vipers locked up for. But yeah, rare arboreal viper species, so that'll be fun. I have a couple. What's that?
What I think it is.
Oh, I don't know because I have 22 species of vipers over here. So but
Then it might not.
I
It might
mean,
not be. It might not be then. All right.
it could be. It could be. It's something that I haven't had for a real long time.
Okay.
Um,
Not what I'm thinking.
just
So I'm
got,
excited to see. Cool.
okay. Yeah, I know. So it's so something small like most of my stuff, but
Okay.
I'm putting a lot of stuff together this month, and I think I've got a couple other species of vipers that are gravid right now, all arboreals. And this month, I'm going to try, well, not necessarily this month. Right now, I'm just starting to feed up all the girls. So
Yeah.
I,
Sure.
for the last 2 months, have hardly fed any adult snakes at my house other than some of the colubrids and little bit of feeding here and there with some of the chondros or animals that I'm not breeding this year that went last year. Been feeding them, but everything that I'm planning to pair up from now through the winter has been pretty much no food. And so we're just kind of playing with some food cycling stuff. And now I'm putting everybody on very consistent scheduling with very small meals,
Yeah.
trying to do the abundant signal thing now that the temperatures are backing off, the rain's starting to come back through. And so I'm keeping everybody more humid and doing more frequent water changes and small, frequent meals with everything. Chondros, the goniosoma, the squams, the all the mangrove snakes, my younger Laticinctus female, like all the stuff that I'm even thinking about. I'm trying to gaboon vipers. My only I've got two male rhinos. My bigger male rhino still looks a little small, so I may not try the rhinos this round.
Okay.
Lots of squams. May try a couple of eyelash vipers. More people get spring breeding done, but like chondros, they're close enough to the equator where, especially captive bred animals, they'll kind of go whenever, according to some guys I know that breed them.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm hoping that it's really my main focus with the food cycling is the colubrids. I've got a lot of mangrove snakes, and I should have eggs in the incubator 24/7. I should never. They lay 2 to 4 clutches a year per copulation. So, and same with the goniosoma. So I should just basically always be incubating Boiga eggs, and I have not been. I've not been getting the results that I like, that I want. So I'm working. This is based on what Dan Malari told me about what he's doing in Malaysia because he can't really temp cycle over there.
Sure.
So he's playing with food cycles. He said it took him about 3 years to get that place dialed in over there. And and shout out to Dan. He's one of the people that I got a package from today.
Nice.
I got a pair of Jimmy Cincta, subadult Jimmy Cincta from him, Wildcaughts, that are fucking black. They are all Jimmy Cincta are black. These ones are ultra black. The female doesn't have any of the gray on her face. Like, I mean, it's crazy how black they are. And he was talking about it in his video, but it's hard to tell. This is the third snake in a row that I've got from Dan after seeing it on one of his videos. And I'm like, yep, need that. And I may get the rest of what he's got over there because they're just super, super nice. Got a pair of Brettles pythons today, a proven pair of hypo het stripes, and a couple of female blue line chondros today too. But yeah, like I say, shout out to Dan for giving me he's always been super helpful with questions that I've had, mostly about Boiga and other colubrids. So I've got the black Jansen eye. They're gonna hopefully I can get that pair to go.
Question about that I was waiting to throw up. Yeah, the Gagne.
Oh yeah, I could go. I'm gonna go downstairs with you guys and grab my laptop so I can actually see the comments while we're doing this. But Yeah. So I brought in 2 pairs of Gonyosoma jansenii, the black phase. I got 1 pair from Ashley Dezan and 1 pair from Cam at Bushmaster. The pair that I got from Ashley is immaculate. They came in immaculate. They are still immaculate. They've fed well from the beginning. I have no fucking clue where my computer is. Oh, and they they fed well from the beginning, and they've just been doing great. The pair that I got from Cam came in looking good, although the female, she had a couple of scars and was a little light, but I didn't think any of that was a big deal. But she started showing RI symptoms, and I was running antibiotics on her, and Greg Power told me. Greg's kind of low key as a breeder, but he's the manager at DFW Reptarium. I've known Greg for 22 years, and he has bred all kinds of stuff. He used to be a monitor guy. He's done all kinds of boids and colubrids, and he was just a big time lizard guy. He used to outdoor use all kinds of stuff. Greg's got a ton of experience, super, super knowledgeable dude. And he said, he does Asian colubrids now and does he's got a lot of pits and all kinds of stuff. He said, it's not a respiratory infection. It's lungworms presenting as RI symptoms. And I was like, well, that's why the fucking antibiotics aren't clearing this shit. And so I started doing some parasite treatment, but she just and she hadn't eaten for quite a while, and so I was having to do the wormer with the tube, and I'm sure that was stressing her out, and she just didn't last too long.
Yeah.
The male that I got in that shipment is still doing great, and I still have him, but I sold him to a local friend because they were clearly a different locality than the other 2 that I got. Supposedly the black is a locality thing, but the ones I got from Ashley are super black. A little bit of cream coloration on the gular and bit upper, the anterior ventral scales, and but the ones that I got from Cam, less black, almost like if you have them out in the sun and turn them, you can see kind of almost like brownish undertones and a lot of cream. Yeah, and a lot of cream on the belly. Okay. And so they, anyways, I was planning on pairing, keeping those pairs as pairs because they were different. But since that female died, I just decided to sell the male. And the snake is he is really black, but just not as black as the other ones are. And he's huge and doing fantastic. And I'm really stoked that my local friend Thomas is getting him from me this month. So get this volume down over here. Yeah, the other pair has just been, like I say, perfect the whole time. And I've just should have palpated that girl when I had her out today while Sal was over. I've just been waiting on there to be some follicles in there so I can throw that male in. I threw the male in a couple times just to see how they would behave around each other. No running or anything, and they kind of would coil up in the same spot, but no courtship that I observed. And in my experience with breeding colubrids, I'm trying to think of a time where there was an exception to this. Off the top of my head, every time that I've ever bred colubrids since the 90s, the male initiated courtship immediately upon introduction.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem to be that way where, I feel like a lot of vipers are that way too, where, you know, unlike pythons or boas, you're going to know right away whether or not that snake is, you know, if that male is going for it or not. Rarely do they kind of take their time before showing that interest, that kind of the head twitching behavior, the quick tongue flicks. You know, it's a pretty immediate thing.
Yeah. I've had some boas and pythons take their time, but that's the exception to the rule. And you can, if you know the subtle things that you're looking for in the male's reaction, the way that their head moves as they approach the female, the way that their tongue flicks. Colubrids are very exaggerated with their courtship and can be very aggressive. You know, with the pits, the males will bite the females and all kinds of stuff. The Boiga will do that as well, which is sketchy as fuck because they're, you know, cannibals. And so it's like sitting there watching the male bite the female and like, ugh. And so especially with my big guy, but yeah, I've had chondros and emeralds and almost always Amazons take their time to start really courting heavily. But I've had plenty of chondro pairings where the male was courting the female during the day as I was feeding him into the enclosure. Like I've still got his body in my hands and he's rubbing his chin on her spine and tongue flicking her. I have introduced males and had females drop their tail immediately. I mean, as soon as they smelled the male, just dropped their tail off of the perch. So females do it too. And I have had, it's like 2012, I watched a female in the middle of the day move up to a higher perch to be receptive to a male, aquatic female. I put the male in. This guy was a stud, and she literally woke up and climbed up onto the next perch and coiled up loosely and dropped her tail inside of like 3 minutes. I was like, all right, she's ready to rock and roll.
Yep. Man, if they were all like that, you know, that would be that'd be the way to do it. We have another question here in the chat about squams, how you would rate them as a first-time venomous species.
I actually have mixed feelings about that because there are some pretty hard pros and cons for squams as a first venomous snake. First of all, we'll do the pros first. The pros are that they are tiny.
Yeah.
So they, you know, really small strike range. Not relatively speaking, the motherfuckers come off the ground. They take flight when they strike really hard. So it's deceiving. But just overall, the actual physical length of their strike range is very small.
Yeah.
They are generally not deadly. But everybody reacts different, though. I have a friend that got fucked up last year by a squam. And albeit it was a pretty special envenomation. We can talk more about that. But they are extremely hardy. I mean, extremely hardy. And just overall, they just don't have a lot of requirements. They barely have to eat anything. The female squams in there, I've hardly fed anything for the last 3 months, and they don't look any different really. Okay. And so they don't need to eat much. They eat tiny prey items, so they're super low maintenance. Some cons are that babies don't do well with moisture. So you can't be tossing babies into like, you know, bioactive setups or whatever. Yeah. I don't know what niche they inhabit in the wild that makes them like that when they're babies. But if you missed a baby squam, they start throat puffing and clicking and stuff like next day.
Jeez.
And yeah, you can give them like a little spritz when they're in shed, like directly on the animal. But if you spray down their cage, they'll show what looks like, I'm not calling it a respiratory infection. It could just be an inflammation response or something like that. But they start throat puffing and clicking and wheezing and stuff very quickly. And if you don't remedy that, they roll. You keep them in a wet, keep baby squam in a wet tub, like I do with my chondros or whatever, they roll.
Wow.
But once you've got them big, they do great in bioactive enclosures. You just lean it on the drier side.
Sure.
And they're great displays, and they come in a million colors. They look like dragons. They're one of the coolest looking snakes on the planet. There's a color for everybody.
Yeah.
But there's no direct anti-venom, and bite reactions can differ wildly, and the strike range is deceptive. They will literally throw themselves off of surfaces. They jump when they strike, and they will when they kind of flip their switch and they start running. It's bad. I had one do it today while I had people over, and concrete floors, so he like can't go anywhere. It's like hauling ass in place, but they become virtually impossible to hook.
Yeah.
And so you have to. I'm trying to devise some way to use like some kind of padded tongs to just grab them when they do that. But it's hard to make that happen without feeling like I'm gonna hurt them. Like you try to do that with an eyelash viper, their ribs break real easily.
Really?
Yep. But the squams, what I generally do is just get a big tub and tip it over on its side, and then like coax them into freaking out into the big tub, and then I literally dumped them back into their enclosure from the tub. That's what I had to do today, because they become 100% impossible to hook once they freak out.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty serious downside. Once you're at the point of keeping them bioactive, if you have it set up properly, you like don't ever have to interact with the animal at all. You get in there with really long tool to do a water change and feed, and that's it. But like my buddy that got nailed, I guess that was last year, maybe really early this year. I'm pretty sure it was last year. It was an adult female, and she dove out of the cage at him.
Whoa.
And she was in a resting position in the back of the enclosure. This guy's a very responsible, very careful keeper. And this is a large adult female, and she struck and came off of the surface, and she caught herself by his thumb with her mouth.
Oh, geez.
Yep. And so he immediately grabbed her, and to try to pull her off, and when he did, he watched her. He said he watched her just milk herself into his thumb, just flexed all those big head muscles and just dumped venom in his thumb. And he no longer has the end of that thumb, and he almost died in the hospital. And this dude is extremely healthy. He is a very, very, very fit human being.
Yeah.
And he got delusional and almost died in the hospital. And his hospital bill was $1.34 million. That's not an exaggeration. That's not a rumor. I saw his hospital bill, $1.34 million.
Oof.
So squams are one of my favorite snakes. Again, you get captive bred ones. They're super hardy, super easy to care for. But, if you have to like transfer them and stuff like that, they can really be a pain in the ass. What I generally do is just pull the smaller ones. I pull tubs and set that tub inside of a larger tub. So, and most of the time they just hook right out. But once they start running, it's over with. There's just no hooking them once they start running.
Right.
You just have to like coax them into something and then transform like that. So, and that's a huge downside. It's actually frustrates the shit out of me to this day. Like it's a huge downside.
That's why I don't do this anymore. They do the same thing.
Which one?
Dwarf Bitis.
Oh yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I had a room T caudalis take off like 20 feet down a room, and I'm just like, no, I'm good.
They're fast, dude.
I had to grab them with forceps to put it back in its tub. It was death rolling on itself and biting and shit. I'm just like, oh, that was fucking terrible. So
yeah, the young puff adders will do that too. You know, I produced puff adders about a year ago, and they'll do that too. But fortunately, those Tanzanian, the Dodoma puffs are they're the calmest puffs I've ever dealt with. And so with them, because they're so spring loaded, I just automatically put the tub into a larger tub. Just in case they want to fly out. But I tell you what, I decided to sell off. I had a trio that I kept back. I decided to sell a pair and just keep my favorite female.
Okay.
And I bumped her up to a larger enclosure with some deep substrate, and she just stays mostly buried in the substrate like a little sand viper, and seems to have calmed her down quite a bit. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So then what would you, from all your experience, say would be like a couple species that are like the best to kind of get your feet wet with venomous?
Eyelash vipers. That's what I recommend for everybody is eyelash vipers.
Yeah.
That or a smaller North American crotolid if you're in the US, because the anti-venom is so readily available. So copperheads, rock rattlers, stuff like that. They don't have terrible bites. Like the venom's it's not going to drop you dead or anything like that. They're manageable size. Rock rattlesnakes can flip shit too. But if you have two hooks, the two hook tends to, multiple points of contact tends to slow them down on the occasion that they become spring loaded.
And then a little bit of pressure, like a couple inches back on the neck, kind of stops them. Like if you grab them with the hook real up close to the head, they kind of stop in their tracks.
Yeah, that's what I do when I do the two hook thing. Is I try to get them like that and get them to do that pull back. It's almost like the defensive thing, but without tapping them in the nose, and then get the other hook underneath their lower body. And once that other point of contact hits, they usually won't try to dive again. And they're also not leveraged well to do that. If you have them towards the upper body and towards the lower body, they can't really like get into that spring loaded position. Copperheads copperheads tend to like slither. So if you they don't do a whole lot of like freaking out or jumping or anything. And so they usually one hook and tail, or two hooks. Like they're usually pretty easy to manipulate. They're also very cheap and readily available. And like say everyone there's Crowfab and Anavip everywhere that you are, so very, very easily treated. Still capable of causing massive tissue damage and terrible allergic reactions and all that stuff. But my favorite to recommend are eyelash vipers. And as long as I've been keeping venomous snakes, I actually just started keeping eyelash vipers about, was it 3.5 years ago or something like that?
Okay.
Early 2021, I think. And man, I have like 20 of them right now, and they are, first of all, incredible species. What a beautiful, beautiful animal, and it's such a unique animal. They are extremely hardy, extremely hardy. I haven't seen a dead one yet. I haven't had to raise newborns. I haven't bred them yet. Working on it this year. Haven't bred them yet, but I don't expect that they're going to be super difficult to start. I know Viper guys who have never raised chondros before. Some of them talk shit when I say this, but if you can establish baby chondros, most baby chondros, like I won't say most, the majority of them are not terribly difficult. But the ones that are difficult are as difficult of a feeder as there is. Like it just, if you can do that, you can do anything else. And just like the baby chondros, with the baby vipers, if they're really being a pain in the ass, you just throw a lizard in there, man, and they're gonna eat it. So that's why I have morning geckos. But yeah, the eyelashes, very mild venom. Still don't want to get bit, but I don't know that there's any recorded deaths. And it's most of the bites that I've heard about were very, very mild symptoms. You don't see people run around missing fingers from eyelash vipers and stuff like that. Incredibly beautiful, incredibly variable. There's an eyelash for everybody. Like they're super variable, greens and golds and pinks and tigers and stripes and combinations, and just they're incredibly beautiful, incredibly variable, incredibly hardy. They do just fine in simple tub setups like this.
Yeah,
that's an eyelash viper right there. They raise up just fine like that. The adults do fine like that, but they also do fine. I don't know about it as neonates because I'm not into. I just knocked my phone over. Sorry. I'm not into putting. I raise everything the same way. I don't ever put baby anything into like complex or bioactive enclosures, but the adults do fantastic in that densely planted, beautiful, badass bioactive setups, or anything in between. So you can go, semi-naturalistic. You can do paper or puppy pads, but with a couple of potted plants and some natural branches. That's the way that I like to keep adult chondros, but you can keep schlegs literally anywhere from a paper and plastic to full bioactive and anything in between. But you don't see the same behaviors and perching and stuff. I was talking to a friend of mine about this one time, and he was talking about the way that schlegs behave in simple setups versus planted enclosures, and how this guy has, it was Bill Lamar. I don't know if you know who Bill Lamar is, but he's been all over, and, first person that I ever heard of that professionally took people on herping tours in the Amazon and whatnot. And he was talking about seeing certain people's setups and seeing the eyelashes perching like wild eyelashes, which is super cool. So that's bromeliads and, intersecting perches and mossy branches and stuff like that. They love hunting off of flowering plants. They'll eat all kinds of stuff, birds and bats and bugs and frogs and lizards and whatever else they're finding. But yeah, eyelash viper is always my recommendation. They tend, when they run, they can be kind of a pain, but they are not prone to it, and it's mostly juveniles. Adults, even when the adults I never have any of the adults run. They just kind of cruise a little bit when they get upset, and 2 hooks handles that super easy. But most of the time they just ride the hook at most ages, because they're heavily arboreal and they just wrap it up. And the only downside to eyelash vipers as a first is that their strike range is something to get used to. They can anchor their tail and strike 80% of their body length or something like that, which, most snakes are like 25-30% of their body length strike range. I've probably said this before, but when I am moving the eyelashes up from 6 to 15 quarts, it's not necessarily because they've outgrown the 6 quart. It's because their strike range has outgrown the length of the feeding utensils that I use for that rack.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's when they move. I had to move them up when they start getting too close to my fingers in that rack.
That's smart. That's a good barometer to use.
Yeah, yeah. They're I've got some adults back over here right now because I was experimenting with some bioactive tubs, and it wasn't working out the way that I wanted it to. Um, so I'm redoing those tubs to just semi-naturalistic, and just mulch and leaf litter and plants and perches instead of full bioactive because the tubs just weren't ventilated well enough.
Okay.
But so I've got some of the adults sitting over here instead of the venomous room while I finish them up. But so she's even holding on to that extra perch right there.
Yeah.
See that? She's just holding that herself. That's how well they ride the hooks. But yeah, I've got just these bamboo perches crossed in there. And so she's sitting on the hook and on the perch. But nice peppered female.
Yeah. That's
Aaron Gerson produced her. So they're really, really calm snakes most of the time. They are rarely defensive, and just like any other species, I have a couple of particular individuals that are more defensive than the others or whatever.
Sure.
But and they mostly just gape, and 99% of the strikes that I get out of them are feeding response. It's not not a defensive thing. So,
yeah.
But they just, super easy. Also, just like the squams, hardly ever have to feed them. They're actually prone to obesity at younger ages than any other snakes I've worked with. It's been kind of a learning curve for me. This is a Texas bred male. He's pink and red and orange.
Yeah, that's super nice.
Yeah. Those are actually my first two, the ones that I just showed you.
Really?
First two that I ever got. I've raised these guys up from tiny, tiny little babies, like just started. And they're really, really cool animals, man.
Very cool.
So I know we're supposed to be talking about breeding successes and stuff this year. Do we want to touch on the whole Laticinctus thing, or what do you want to talk about in that realm?
Yeah, if you're down for it, I think that was the next place I was going.
Yeah. So I keep I have an adult trio of Tropidolaemus laticinctus, and lately I've been saying Laticinctus in there we go, in quotations. So I'll start by saying that they are, while they're quite variable, the really nice ones are just among the most beautiful snakes in the world. Like, my chondros are my favorite snakes, and I have some chondros that I consider to be like crown jewels of my collection. But my big female Laticinctus and my big male Divergens are, to me, they are as beautiful as any snake anywhere. Like, I won't say they're the most beautiful snake in the world, but you can't show me a snake and convince me that it's definitively more beautiful than those two animals. And I started with a pair from Fascination, killed the female, still have the male. Acquired an adult and subadult female later. Also acquired another adult female after those, but she came in old and kind of rough around the edges, and she just never acclimated. But the big female and the subadult female and my original male are all flawless. They could pass for captive bred. They're flawless animals. And I've just, ever since I saw the Frank Cannon picture of this purple banded female, I just That was the most amazing thing ever. I've always been a fan of Tropidolaemus. They have the best head shapes. They're just fucking dragons.
Yeah.
And I've kept Wagleri before. Briefly had some subannulatus. None of the cool subs come over. And Laticinctus was just described in 2007. I wish I had done some more research on these animals before I started down that road with all my weird conjectures about what was happening with the breeding.
Okay.
But because apparently the conclusion that I came to was already one that was considered by other people. So when they were described on Morphology, no DNA.
Oh, really?
And yep, and share a range with subannulatus. So I paired mine last year. I got a lock in early December 3rd, I think. Had them together 2 or 3 times, and a lot of courtship from that male. I just happened to swing by my house to check something out, and it was during the day, and I was like, yeah, let me go in here and take a peek at them, and caught them locked up. Otherwise I never would have seen it. But that was super awesome to walk in there and see that, because vipers are really, really good at sperm retention. So you don't have to nail the timing as much as you do with, say, like emeralds or something, right? And so if you get a lock, the girl doesn't have to necessarily be developing at that point. If you get a good lock out of them, and the female starts developing at some point, like they're just much better at sperm retention.
Yeah.
So that was super exciting. But then, the live bear thing, the long wait. And I'm traditionally not great with live bears. And you're waiting a really long time to see if they're going to slug out or just have massive defecation instead of babies. Especially with Tropidolaemus. Adult female Tropidolaemus only pass waist like 2 to 4 times a year.
Oh wow.
And that being said, though, I feed them, at most once a month.
Yeah.
Small meals. Like they don't move. They're like a gaboon viper. They're like an arboreal gaboon viper. They literally do not move. They will sit motionless. The youngsters will cruise a little bit, especially when you first move them or whatever, you'll see some activity, but they just sit there in the same spot all the time. I had a female Wagler's viper. Still have her. One of the females that dropped babies for me, one of the gravid imports from last year. I have natural wood in the cage, and this piece of crepe myrtle or whatever had some borers in it, little beetles. And I came in, and this female had this perfect little pyramid of sawdust on her back, like a perfect little cone, 20 cone of sawdust on her back. So I'm like, she's like even breathing so subtly that this like ultra fine sawdust was able to accumulate to a sharp point laying on her back. And my initial like knee-jerk reaction was to get the sprayer and like rinse it off. But then I stopped, and I'm like, I just want to see how long that will stay there for. I came in the next day, and she had another one on her, and that one was still in the same place. Like, nice. I mean, ultra fine cones to a point of sawdust from beetles boring above her out of a branch.
That's funny.
It's crazy how motionless they are. So they expend no calories, and they just hardly ever have to eat. Feed them small meals. My male, I go outside and pull a gecko off of my wall whenever, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever, and toss it in there, and that's it. And he maintains a lovely body weight like that. And he won't eat anything else. Live geckos. He came in eating frozen thawed pinkies, and then would only take live, and then would only eat live lizards. He did the reverse progress.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. So yeah, it won't even take frozen thawed geckos or anything. It's got to be live geckos.
Yeah.
Motherfucker. Anyways, which is a good thing he doesn't have to eat very often.
Yeah, that's true.
And I actually just gave him 2 geckos about a week and a half apart, because here pretty quick I'm going to just stop feeding them all together.
Sure.
And so their general gestation is about 9 months, and almost exactly 9 months after I saw that lock, the exact same way that I caught the lock, I just happened to be by the house for something else and decided to run in and check on her because her mass had been moving down. And this girl had been off feed for months, refusing. She's usually a pretty good eater. She'd been refusing meals for months. She'd been basking every single day, moving her coil under the light, her head was shrinking, doing her color shifted slightly. Although toward the yellow as opposed to away from it, like every other snake that I know goes like kind of hormonally axanthic, so to speak, right? They darken or turn more blue. She actually went less blue and more yellow, so kind of interesting, and has shifted back a bit since. And so I came in and I see that there are babies in the enclosure, but there's something very strange in there. And so here, and by the way, prior to this, 0 records of anybody ever breeding these snakes.
Yeah.
So I see that in there. Badass little baby Laticinctus. And the problem is that there are 4 babies in there, and the rest of them are green. And I'm like, what in the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Like, why are you coming out of my Laticinctus female? And this one, if you're looking at him like you look at Waggleri or subannulatus, that's a male. It's got the spotted pattern. And let's see. There's one more that looks just like that, and then there is. Oh, she's too close to the edge to grab perch, so I use feeding tongs, not the same ones I feed with, but the same, tweezers to grab the perches. Yeah. So see, she has the banding, as opposed to the dotted pattern. So in subannulatus and Waggleri, the banded ones are they're sexually dimorphic at birth. The banded ones are female. The spotted ones are male.
That's cool.
And the males don't go through an ontogenetic color change. They stay the same color their whole life and stay super tiny.
Yeah.
The Laticinctus are the same way. The males keep the neonate color. The females go through a serious ontogenetic color change.
Okay.
So I've got all this stuff going through my head, and I message Kristen from Fascination, and I send her only pictures of the green ones. And I say, hey, are these, no context, and I said, are these Waggleri or subannulatus? And she goes, those are subannulatus. So, okay, thanks. So my initial thought is they're clearly not hybrids.
Yeah.
So what we have is a case of sperm retention, multiple paternity, and androgenesis all simultaneously. Androgenesis is like parthenogenesis, but only the male passes on his genetics. Mm-hmm. All of these things separately are very well documented in snakes. Mm-hmm. Androgenesis probably occurs, and parthenogenesis probably occurs way more frequently than we know, because we only notice it when it's like a morph thing. Sure. And you're like, oh, there's no way that this can be this without it being right. Like for example, I had a full partho chondro clutch one time. It was a repeat pairing. I used a dominant red male. He sired 17 red babies on a yellow female. Mm-hmm. The first clutch. The second time I paired them, the behavior was really weird. Like the timing didn't feel right. The female wasn't acting gravid. A bunch of stuff was weird about it. She laid 10 eggs and a bunch of them crashed. But they were all yellow babies and all perfect copies of their mom. Okay. No survivors. Only one of them even hatched, but none of them survived. So clearly Partho. And like I say, that like I feel like it happens way more frequently than we think, and we just don't realize that it's happening. But androgenesis is more rare than parthenogenesis, but it still happens. Sperm retention is well documented. Multiple paternity is well documented. Multiple paternity probably potentially also happens more frequently. I had multiple paternity in my first chondro clutch, so these things happen. But the chances of all three of them occurring and really long-term sperm retention, so low, man. It's such a low incident that like the probability of that occurring. So then I posted about it, but I kind of already had this thought in my mind because Nick Method, who's my partner in a bunch of this stuff, including those, he brought it up, and I'm like, man, but they're just so different. He said exactly those words. What if laticinctus is just a color phase of subannulatus? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't know, man, because I just wanted to be this like special thing, right? And but man, they were originally I found somebody sent me pictures from an old book that had pictures of both, and they were just calling them, type 1 and type 2 subannulatus in this old book. Yeah. And so to see them both in the same clutch, or the same litter, you can call it a clutch technically, right? Ovoviviparous. It's technically a clutch too, but whatever. In the same litter, it tells me that it's red and yellow baby chondros. It's garden and colored Amazons. It's green and gold schlegs. Can we still call them schlegs even though they're different species now?
Yeah, I feel like it's like the same with calling chondros,
Yeah, exactly. I'm having hard. I still call them chondros even though they haven't been chondros. They stopped being chondros like before I started even keeping chondros, I think, which is like a million years ago. Anyways.
Born yet,
yeah. I think it was like 93 or something. But so I can't believe that I don't know like the exact date and hour to the minute that became a thing. I probably did at some point. I'm just getting old and forgetful. It's fucked up. I can remember the ID codes of animals that hatched in 1993, but I forget some of the ones that are right behind me that I produced myself.
You don't need to. You have the ID right behind you,
Yeah, well, until I move them into bigger cages and stop using their cards. That's the cards right behind me are fine. It's when I forget to write down who I sold what to, and I'm like, oh, you didn't remember the number of this animal that I sold you? Because I sure was fucked up.
That's funny.
Yeah, but yeah, so looks like Tropidolaemus laticinctus is not a species. It is a color phase of Tropidolaemus subannulatus.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, they are still badass. I am super fucking stoked to have produced any Tropidolaemus in captivity. There's not a lot of people doing that in the world, period.
Yeah.
I thought I was the first person in the world to do this. There's unsubstantiated claims from Indonesia. I hope some of those guys are watching this because still nobody sent me proof that they've had anything other than wild females dropping babies.
Yeah.
However, when I posted, it turns out that a gentleman in China also had a litter that also contained both color phases, also from 2 laticinctus adults on the same fucking day as me. God damn it.
Couldn't have waited 12 hours, huh?
Well, and I think they're like in their time zone, like ahead of ours. So didn't he like technically beat me to it? But whatever. We have the same date, so we're tied for world's first.
Yeah. Not a bad place to be.
But also super cool to see that he got the same results. And so basically what that means is that the laticinctus, the banded ones, are the red baby chondros, and the green ones are the yellow baby chondros. So you're probably not going to get the banded ones from breeding two greens, but you can clearly get greens from breeding two banded ones, just like red and yellow chondros. So,
interesting.
Yeah, and I'm still super stoked about it, and hope to continue doing it and try to refine that and just raise up the ones that have the looks that I like, and kind of it'd be cool to. It's just a really awesome project, and I'm also extremely interested to see what this female subannulatus grows up to look like, because none of the good ones ever make it to the States. The Indo guys keep them, or they go to Europe or China or whatever. All we get is the fucking green ones. So it'd be super cool if I get like a high blue or whatever, or blue and yellow banded, or one of those white checkered looking things or whatever.
Yeah, that'll be cool to see. Yeah, I mean, that's stuff like that's awesome. And, you know, I guess it's a shame that they're not as easily reproducible as you'd like them to be, the laticinctus look. It's shocking though that, and I don't know enough about this, but I feel like speciating something based on morphology alone is just, that's so irresponsible.
I mean, technically that's how we always did it until real fucking recently. So
yeah.
But yeah, whatever. A lot of people argue both sides of that. Have you gone back and listened to the that podcast that I was asked you about the other day, Saturday morning, a couple weeks ago?
I didn't get a chance yet.
Dude, he has there's a really good section pretty early on about his opinions about that type of stuff, and why systematics are more important than taxonomy. And it's really cool to hear him phrase those things that way, because it just makes perfect sense. Like,
sure,
the names are just names. The animals are the animals, no matter what we call them. Right. I've said that same thing about chondro localities. Like, you know, the Arfak Mountains used to be in the Manokwari Regency. They're not anymore. So it used to be that Arfaks were Manokwari, because you could still call them Manokwari because they're from the Manokwari Regency. They're going to leave from the city of Manokwari, which is how most chondros get their locality name anyways, is where they're named. But the thing is that borders change. The Manokwari Regency got chopped up into 3 different regencies in 2013, and so now the Arfak Mountains are in the Arfak Regency. And but technically, Arfak, Manokwari, Sorong, they're all the exact same fucking thing. They're all Bird's Head Peninsula. They're Gogolkot Peninsula, Morelia, Azuria, Pulcher, West Papuan, whatever you want to call them. Regionally, they're the same thing. And I've said that forever, that these chondros are exactly what they are, regardless of what we call them. Right. And everybody in different places calls them different shit, and people lie about where they came from to sell them and all that nonsense. But the snakes in the wild are still the same snakes no matter what. And it's the same thing with taxonomy. And so it's just a really fascinating little insight about why systematics are more important than taxonomy, and let people be splitters or lumpers, and argue about DNA versus morphology, and argue about, let Hoser run around and be a dumbass and putting his name on everything and whatever. Who gives a shit, dude? Those snakes are still what they are, and it's their biology and their natural history, and why they became what they became. More interesting and more important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very well said. And I will have to go check that episode back out. Well, I want to be conscious of your time tonight. Do you want to wrap soon, or do you want to maybe hit another quick topic?
Well, yeah, let's definitely another topic. What else do you have in mind?
So the last thing I wanted to touch on, you produced the hypo Stillwater bull snakes. I guess two
Yeah.
things. One, do you know the history of that lineage, that morph? And then, what are your thoughts on the current state of the Pituophis market in general?
Sure. So, as a disclaimer, I don't have my finger on the pulse of any market other than chondros.
Sure.
No joke. Literally nothing else. Chondros are the only thing that I pay attention to. And I don't even like using that word because regardless of what my operation is like, I am a hobbyist. And, it's like I try to keep as much business talk out of my vocabulary as possible. This shit is fun for me, and I don't I have to. There's aspects of it that I unfortunately have to treat like a business, but so that being said, the market for pits in Asia right now is apparently crazy because people are shipping out pits to China like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And other Asian countries. I feel like Dan may be sending his stuff to Korea or maybe the Indo market or something. Colubrids, American colubrids in general are super popular in Asian countries and certain Indo spots right now, and which is super cool for like if you're selling stuff, but also like I'm not going to say any names because I love this dude to death, but somebody that I really wanted a bull snake from this year sold them all to China because he got offered stupid money.
I think we want the same bull snakes from the same guy.
Yeah. Yep. And maybe. And
definitely.
But I know. And look, you're not the only one. There's actually 3 of us that are all close friends, and
I'm pretty sure I know who the third guy is too, and he may not be in the chat right now. So
may or may not. And but can you blame him? Easy, one deal, big money,
blown.
So I get it. Oh, he did blew his cover. That being said, I will have to say that it was slightly made up for because I was second degree gifted a couple other animals that he produced this year that are super, super awesome. So, yeah. And anyways, so the Stillwater line originates from a wild population around Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Mm.
I don't know a ton about the history of that line other than I think they've like been bred since the 80s or something like that.
Mm.
And apparently there have been many animals caught in that area with that trait, with that gene. It's a naturally occurring hypo. I mean, a lot of morphs are technically naturally occurring, but
repeatedly.
So yeah, it's a repeat, and so we'll use like scrubs as an example. Things like patternless and axanthic are super common in lots of wild scrub populations. Other than barnecks, why the fuck can't we get patternless axanthic barnecks? What the fuck? Barnecks are slacking. Wild barnecks, if you're listening, you're slacking on the morphs.
You're forcing us to do hard work for something that is easily accomplished in Tannenbar and in the southern population. So,
well, we could do like some of the other guys do and just sneak some of those genetics in and then breed it back out of them, like they do with some of the Pantherophis morphs and shit like that.
We're not going to do that. If you do, fuck you.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to do that. Plus, it's not practical because you can't raise them up in like 18 months and breed them again and like bring it back out of them in 4 years, have something that's like 87% what you want it to be.
And I feel like like the market for 50% bar neck, 50% tannin bar, het, axanthic patternless might not be the biggest market in the world either.
Would you call them tandem bar necks? I
think you'd have to. And I'm upset because someone's going to be like, they got a good ring to it. I'm going to do that. So
yeah,
you're going to be Southern. They're dumb, but you know what I'm
saying. Yeah. Amethynauta. But yeah, if you look at them, their colors, while beautiful, are not bright. They're not like an albino where they stand out to predators. You know, if you've ever driven through that part of Oklahoma, most of the ground out there looks like that a good part of the year. And they're the color of dead vegetation like regular bull snakes are.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's not a dysfunctional thing, just like patternless and axanthic scrub pythons. It's just the mutation doesn't, you know, it's functional.
Yeah.
So I know John Ginter was one of the early people working with them. John Ginter was a pioneer in bull morphs. Everybody that does like been into bulls for a long time knows his name. He also was the, you know, I don't know enough around the history. Somebody may be pissed off for calling him the originator, but he's the name associated with Kingsville red bull snakes because we call them Ginter line Kingsville reds because of this, I guess, because of the soil color down there. But around Kingsville, Texas, the bulls have really nice reds, and John Ginter collected the best ones he could find and refined those reds to something far beyond anything you'll ever find in the wild.
Sure.
And then he also had the great idea to cross them out at some point and create what we call the flame line. And I don't know if he, you know, I had one person tell me he originated that name. I have another person that says that he originated that name. I'm not really sure. I don't care. But one of my females, my red female, that's what she is. She's a flame line, which is we call it red influenced Stillwater hypo using the Kingsville blood.
Makes sense.
And interestingly, I got more red babies from my classic female this year than I did from my red female.
Well,
to be fair, I got 50% more babies from that female as well. So I got 12 and well, that's not quite 50% because one egg was infertile and another one didn't hatch. But anyways, 12 and 16. She laid 18 eggs. I got 12 and 18 eggs laid, but got 16 babies out of the larger clutch. Anyways, more reds in that clutch. Here's another interesting thing. I'm still calling this anecdotal, even though it's 2 years in a row with these animals. The red seems to be a female trait, which is pretty interesting. I'm not really getting any males that have a significant degree of red. All of the nice reds from both clutches have been female 2 years in a row.
I wonder if that would exist from a red to red pairing as well.
No, that's an interesting question. I have no clue what the answer is. But yeah, it looks like, you know, for a few years, pits have seemed to be pretty popular. And if we want to talk about the market, I do still have a few available. I think I have 2 pairs left right now.
Okay.
But the extra males that I had all sold or all but one sold. And I actually had somebody back out on 2 pairs. So that's why I still have 2 females available because somebody backed out on 2 pairs, a local guy that I've been holding stuff for.
Okay.
But yeah, the 2 years in a row, I have sold all of my baby bull snakes to friends of mine.
Yeah.
Which is fucking awesome. And I've sold them to guys that have never kept bulls, sold them to a bunch of chondro guys. You know, Marshall Mendez got a pair, you got a pair. I sold Brian Fisher a pair last year. Like just so many guys that, and also just individuals that have never kept bulls before.
Mm-hmm.
And my buddy Zach, who helps me out over here, he quoted it best. Just last week he was over and he was cleaning the bull snakes, the yearlings, and he had one in his hand and it was doing the like pull backwards thing that they do, you know. And bull snakes, even among pits, the bulls feel different than all the other pits. The pines are closer, and it's interesting because they actually used to be a subspecies of Melanoleucus, and then they've moved them over to the gopher subspecies. And to me, they're not really either of them. They're bull snakes. They're good, and also to me, they're much closer to pines than they are to gopher snakes. Gopher snakes.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put like northern pine and a bull snake, same age, same size, adulthood's different.
Yeah.
Strip all the like let's just like close your eyes. There's no
difference. Tell you the difference. Yeah, same head shape, same scalation, but there are subtle differences, and I think that they stand apart, but far from pines, the bulls do, but far away from the gophers. And like the discussion that you and I were having with Craig Trumbauer about the gophers at the show. What were those, Lineata-Collis? Is that what we were looking at?
The Guatemalan.
Yeah, Gibson yeah. And supposedly all the guys have the stories about how they get 8 and 9 feet long, but I haven't ever seen one that big, so I'm kind of sad about that. You know, they look more like Bogertophus or Symphicolis or something with a Pitchophis pattern, kind of. They look like a hybrid between a Subok and a Sonoran gopher or something like that. They lean way more rat snake. You know. So, anyways, but yeah, the bulls. All the pits seem to be popular, but I'm a much bigger fan of bulls and pines than I am of the gopher snakes. The only gophers that I really, really like are Cape gophers. Vertebralis, incredible snakes.
Yeah.
I've kept a few other ones, but yeah, it's kind of cool, and they're so easy to breed and so easy to start, and that if they continue to be easy to sell, I'll keep pumping out babies. I got a new project this year. I think I sent you pictures of the white-sided.
Yes.
Stillwater. So the male is albino, which washes out all the color. It's terrible. Albino regular bulls and albino red bulls are fucking unbelievable snakes, man. Unbelievably beautiful. But the albino hypo white side, he's white with dingy yellow markings, and he is an asshole. 100% will bite. Like he's soon as you open it up, he's full blown rasping, hissing, rattling, all the things they do, but most of them just do that or will half-ass headbutt strike. This motherfucker will bite you. It's awesome.
That's funny. We got a heck of comments. Apparently, someone was expecting some chondro talk. It ain't Tuesday night.
Oh yeah,
it ain't Tuesday. We don't talk about them green stick snakes over here, except for vipers.
We did talk about chondros right at the beginning, that I've hatched out 6 clutches this year, and they've mostly been, well, the first 2 I had pretty good numbers, and then I've had a bunch of really tiny clutches after that, which is super extra fucking lame, but one is better than none. But yeah, Chris, maybe we'll touch back on some chondro stuff, but right now, you know, we're talking about bull snakes, and this is very important.
Talking about Americans. Real Americans.
Yeah, America. We had the bulls out. We're cleaning some bull snakes, and Zach said, "I think everybody loves bull snakes. They just might not know it yet." And I tend to agree wholeheartedly that they're just they're like just an ideal pet snake. They're invincible. They are, they live a really long time.
Yeah.
They get big enough to be impressive, but not unmanageable. And they're readily available in a bajillion different colors. They will, the last year, I paired my male with one female, gave him a day break. He locked her in 5 minutes, gave him a 1 day break, paired him with the next female. He locked her up inside of 5 minutes. Just next time I checked, they were locked up. And 37 days after each of those, I had eggs on the ground.
Mm.
It's that easy. The babies would probably eat while they're still half in the egg.
Probably. Yes.
And they eat frozen thawed fuzzy mice left in the enclosure 100% of the time.
Yeah.
They eat in shed. I feed them in my hand while in shed, while I'm cleaning their cage out with the other hand. I will pull the snake out, hand it a pinky, and it grabs it and starts swallowing it deep in shed while I'm changing its club and water out. And then I toss it back in there. And it's amazing.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, same thing with like the Mexican pines. The only difference, they're just a little bit smaller. To me, if you kind of, compare like the colubrid world, like the python world, I feel like Pituophis fit the same niche that scrubs do within that ecosystem, like comparatively, where they're a large species but not unmanageable. They're variable. They have a wide array of different localities, color variations, and whatnot. They're bold, confident, impressive animals. They're poised. To me, a lot of the same things I like about scrub pythons apply to Pituophis just in colubrid form. Yeah,
and they're just an impressive, powerful predator, and it's just awesome. But they're also one of the most fun snakes to handle. They just feel really awesome. The texture of their scales, their musculature, they have so much personality. When you walk in there, they come right up and they're like, "What's up?" and trying to check everything out. Real interactive. They'll use as big of a space as you give them. They'll use it, and they're diurnal. So like if you want a snake that's like out doing stuff, get a bull snake. And apparently you can litter box train them too, which is fucking awesome. And we talked about that, didn't we? About the litter box training of bull snakes.
Like now that you mentioned it, I'm pretty sure on the last show we did touch upon it briefly.
Yeah, super awesome. Also, local friend of mine just hatched a clutch of Mexican pines vivid stock, and he said 2 of the males hatched out with orange already. So I'm getting one of those for him for the girl that I got from you.
Sweet.
So
that's awesome.
They'll be maturing right on time together.
Nice. Yeah, that'll be a great pair. Quick shout out to Emmy. He grabbed a Mexican pine for me this weekend, right?
Dope.
A bull snake. A bull snake.
The bull. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of people just like randomly bought baby bulls from me that I got at the show, and like a lot of the ones I brought were already sold, but I just sold some randomly to just some of my friends there, including him. And it's just awesome. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, well, I sold him pretty well on the yearling, so I think that the baby was a no-brainer. So
yeah, man, and just what I love is that they're just like, I love how like lots of people hit me up and they're like, "Thank you for selling me this snake. I love this animal, about my chondros and stuff," especially when they first get it. But the bull snakes, like I keep having people like a year later telling me how much they love those bull snakes that I sold them, and they're so cheap, and that's just super cool to me. They're some of the cheapest snakes that I have. They're the easiest ones, and people just love them to death.
They get progressively more fun as they get bigger. It's just they look better. They're more fun to interact with. They get more bold and confident with age. It just everything about those snakes just keeps getting better and better as they age, which I think makes for a really sustainable market as well, because unlike ball pythons or whatnot, they peak at some point and then they kind of deteriorate. Where with a Pituophis, you're obviously like a geriatric 22-year-old bull snake isn't going to act like a 4-year-old bull snake, but like still as beautiful as that 4-year-old bull snake.
Yeah. Well, and Jay has a black pine snake that I assume she's still alive. But last year, I guess she laid a single fertile egg that hatched at 44 years old.
No
Yeah,
shit.
44 years old.
My God.
And yeah, she was collected legally. If you know anything about Pitchofa's history, like she was collected when it was still legal to collect black pine snakes.
That wasn't recently.
Yeah, they've been protected for a very, very, very long time. She was collected legally.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, and laid a fertile egg that hatched at 44 years old.
I feel like I need to acknowledge that that Chris used some wordplay that went right over our head, talking about nothing but.
Oh no, I didn't go over my head. I caught it. That was a good one.
Well, it
Chris
went
is
over my head, so.
Chris is yeah, I got your terrible pun, Chris. I didn't see that comment, but yeah, no, it wasn't terrible. It was pretty good.
Hell
Chris
yeah.
is he's a smart one, and he's fucking funny.
He sure is.
Uh,
Alex wants to know the snake next to your head, top right. Is it that single tub? I hope, if Alex, if you're still here, was it moving around or something? Was it
where like
I feel like closest to the door.
here, or close to over here.
Alex, if you're still around, let us know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I didn't. What's the snake next to your head?
Top of the rack.
Well, to his right. Fuck, I have no. Dude, the top of the rack is way up here. So,
well, if he
yeah,
comes around, well,
yeah,
it's probably some
yeah, I
sort
have
of
no
sorts.
Yeah, I don't know how you can even see
Top
in this rack right here in the baby rack.
No, I feel like probably the rack behind you. It was
this
right
one back here.
Probably.
Oh, this one right here, the one that's moving around up here.
Probably.
I bet that's what it's talking about because she's just going crazy up here.
Yeah.
So this is Squirt. She's my holdback puff adder, and she's named Squirt because she was a runt that was half the size of her siblings, which were already tiny. This animal was born super, super tiny, and like coil up on a quarter tiny.
Wow.
And she took off, and she's by far the most colorful one in the litter, and she's the only one that I kept. She's the one I was talking about earlier that started burying herself in the substrate.
Okay.
And I'm gonna do this trick where I lean my camera over the edge of the tub.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, so she's wanting to come out and say hi. Hey, everybody. She's really, really red and really, really adorable.
Yeah.
During the day, she's just really pissy. But right now, she's just wanting to come out and eat something.
Yeah.
Isn't she pretty, dude?
She really is.
Like, oh, their faces, they're so fucking derpy.
I just want to kiss them right on the nose.
Yeah, she wants to kiss me.
I bet.
We're not going to let that happen, are we? All right, Squirt. You got to get back in your tub. Yeah, that is a Tanzanian puff adder, Dodoma locality, captive bred by me. That was the first litter of vipers that I ever produced, actually. I've been working with venomous snakes for a very long time. Yeah. And this was I'd never really tried breeding anything before a couple of years ago. Did a couple squam pairings that didn't play out, and a copperhead pairing that I got stills and slugs. So this was the first time that I ever actually successfully produced vipers. It was a good first.
Hell yeah.
There's also right next to her this is trigon.
Yep. Hell yeah. Very dark. Wow.
Yeah, he has this wicked, really wide matte black wash down his back, and he's got cool, really nice blue colors as well.
Really nice. Cool.
Yeah, and I've got his girlfriend is over in the venomous room over next door, and she's a good sized girl. Her head is huge.
Nice. Hell yeah.
Chris, what do you want us to say about chondros, man? I talk about chondros all the fucking time. I mean, I don't even know what to say other than I'm about to crank all of them back up too. I've had a bunch of girls fasting and some females that I thought were going to go in the spring or summer that didn't. So I just stopped feeding them and stopped pairing them, and I'm going to crank them up and see if I can stimulate some follicle development. I am not going to try to induce. This is something that Chris and I were talking about on the phone a while back. I'm not going to try to use food to induce ovulation this year. Okay. I did that. Some guys use like big meals to induce ovulation and boas and whatnot. I think I messed up doing that this year. And I say that I think I messed up because it seems to have worked. And the problem was that they didn't all seem to be ready to ovulate. So
interesting.
I took 3 female chondros and gave them all 4 small mice all at once, and all 3 of them ovulated. I got 1 good clutch, 1 half-ass clutch that I actually got only 4 out of 10. There were slugs, 10 eggs, only 4 of them were fertile, and none of them made it to, well, they all, two of them went to term. All of them were deformed. Don't know that has anything to do with anything, but the fertility rate is what I'm looking at really there. And then 1 that was 100% slugs, which is the cause of a female ovulating too early.
Yeah. You gotta take the opportunity when it presents itself, comedy is a thing, so
so I will be using food to try to induce follicle development, but I'm not going to try to do the forced ovulation thing. It's a cool tool, but the thing is that the one girl that this is the other interesting thing. It's like having an ultrasound. I've had 2 different people, Rico Walder and a boa breeder friend of mine, tell me years and years ago, buy an ultrasound, it'll pay for itself in 1 season.
Yeah.
Well, another friend of mine a couple of years ago told me, he's worked with the Barkers extensively and he's ultrasounded a bajillion boas and pythons. He goes, dude, you've been doing this for so long. All the ultrasound is going to do is confirm the behavioral stuff that you already see.
Yeah.
And which is still cool. Not knocking that.
Yeah.
But these 3 females, when I was palpating them, well, one of them is exceedingly difficult to palpate, and because she's nasty B-hawk. And the one girl I was sure had right follicles. That's the one that laid a big fertile clutch. One girl that I was on the fence about, she's the one that laid the partially fertile clutch. And the one that I couldn't palpate because she was really mean, but I knew she was developing, just couldn't really tell where, she's the one that slugged all the way out. And I did them all on the same night with that feeding. So it lines up. And it's anecdotal because it's just 3 animals, right? Sure. But if you line up my thoughts and observations with the timing and the consistency of the experiment and with the results, it lines up that's what happened. One of them was ready. I induced ovulation on all 3 of them with food. One was ready, one was almost ready, and one was not ready at all.
Yeah. Is this kind of what Chris is talking about with this comment, with the issues of that?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I think that one of them was early, one of them was a little early, one of them was too early, and one of them was right on time. So it's cool to know that that works, but you don't want to do that unless the female has right follicles, which you can't be 100% sure of without ultrasound.
Sure.
So
creating freaking ping pong balls inside her, you know?
yeah, and that's easier in scrubs than it is in chondros.
Absolutely.
But
100 times.
And you can even feel the size of the follicles in the scrubs, and the follicles will mature at different rates. But if you could feel that all the follicles seem to feel like they're the same size, then yeah, maybe. And it's one of the things that Tracy Barker told me a long, long time ago, that when she was explaining just snake fertility and reproduction and follicle development and all that to me, she said, when you get eggs that look like they're fertile but they're not, that snake got those eggs, like the breeding was too close to the ovulation for them to get fertilized. When the eggs are actual slugs, not just infertile, actual slugs, they that's a timing thing, and the female ovulated before those follicles were mature, right? So and she said, then she went down a list of possible things that could cause that. And she said, excessive heat, stress, and an excessively large meal. She said all three of those things could induce early ovulation. So this is 18 years ago or something that she told me that. So
seems to be holding true. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time tonight. I think we already went about 30 to 45 what we had anticipated, which we also anticipated. So
yeah, we anticipated both of those things. So yeah. So what did I know you said something about a wrap up or something. Did you have some kind of wrap up question or?
Oh, not in particular. I mean,
okay.
Do you have any last?
Oh, you were just asking if I wanted to go ahead and wrap up. I gotcha.
Yeah. No, I do the MJ rapid fire. I leave that for Tuesdays and Thursdays. So.
Yeah. Well. I'll wrap up with the way we started. How many species have I produced this year? I'm hoping to just keep adding to that every year, and I'm not trying to crank up the numbers of snakes that I'm producing, but I currently, because I counted today because somebody asked me, I have 22 species of vipers right now. I would love to breed every single one of those species, not all in the same year. Just I want to, every species, every single snake that I have in my collection, every one of them I adore. I love all of the snakes that they're all here for breeding, because I want to breed all of them because I love them as a species, regardless of whether they're my high-end chondros or ultra-rare vipers or the Ocotecorns and the bull snakes that I hatched a shitload of this year. It's I love all of these animals and I love breeding them. It's absolutely incredible to me. It's still fascinating to me. I've said this on many podcasts. The first time that I ever walked in my bedroom and saw little snake noses and bubbles sticking out of slits in the eggs was in 1995. And to this day, I have incubators in my bedroom. And, and right now waiting to see some noses peek out anytime. So, and it's still, whether it's corn snakes or the chondros, it's always fucking awesome, dude. It is so cool. And so yeah
couldn't have said it better myself. I think that's a great sentiment to wrap on. For anybody who wants to keep up with everything you're doing or potentially inquire about available animals, where can they get a hold of you?
dmexotics.com. Oh, oh wait, no, that's somebody else. Definitely check out Dan because Dan's the man. So I'm on Facebook, but you would possibly, depending on what day you catch me on, just join the 1,000 people that stay at the maxed out number in my friend request purgatory.
Yeah.
But I do have a Facebook page, arboreal_obsession. Arboreal_obsession is also my all snake Instagram. My personal Instagram is GT as in green tree, GT Patrick.tx as in Texas. But if you just get tired of looking at my face, then just follow the other one because it's all snakes. My personal page is mostly snakes, and the other one is all snakes. So,
Hell yeah.
Yeah, come check me out. I have cool stuff over here.
Hell yeah.
Also on that subject, Cryptic Chondros, my buddy Sal from the UK, came over to my house today, and man, we did some stuff. And check out my Instagram story, but follow Cryptic Chondros, follow Amazing Arboreals, Alex Warren. That's Bill's protege over there, right? Follow those guys and check out their stories from today at my house because it is super rare for somebody to get to come over here and like film stuff. It's just not something that happens very often for a lot of different reasons. So follow us on Instagram, check out our stories from today, but Sal is going to be making YouTube videos of the stuff that he got over here today. And It's not exactly a collection tour, more of a highlight reel. It takes probably 2 days to do a collection tour over here.
Yeah.
And we only had like 4 hours. So, yeah, anyways, yeah, check us out.
Hell yeah. Well, dude, thank you for your time tonight. You know, kind of just threw this one together, but I think we did 2 hours pretty well. So thank you as always for your time and your expertise.
Yeah. And I'll send you some pictures of that Viper lock today.
Please do. Well, let me throw you backstage real quick and close this out. But again, thank you a lot for your time, man.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me on, man.
As always. All right, guys, there we have it. Another episode in the books. I'll close this one out quickly. For all of us here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, please give us a subscribe on YouTube. For the audio fans, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of your audio platforms. Share all these videos on social media. You know, the more eyes we can get on, the better. I was in the middle of my thing and I totally freaking spaced. Oh, all right. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, here we go. Found it again. There's a new podcast every single day of the week here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network from a list of some of the best hosts in the industry. So there's never a shortage of reptile content. For me, you can find me on Instagram at Scrub Shepherd and then just Stephen Kush on Facebook. We'll be letting go of some of this year's Scrub production relatively soon. So for anyone who wants to be added to my waiting list, shoot me a message. But with all that said, thank you everybody for tuning in live or listening after the fact. And we will catch you all back here next Wednesday.